Welcome to the May 2026 stream for the Tough Love Arena State of the Game. And I am here to tell you all about the state of the game for Tough Love Arena, what we've done recently, where we're at, what's coming up, etc. Let's jump into it. So, arcade development continues in the background. That is the extent to which I can speak about that for now. We had a patch a couple weeks ago, 0.117.22, which was a couple of long-standing little bugs and feature requests. Named lobbies, which are primarily used for tournaments, like the ones that Shiggy runs every week, now default to prevent start, so people can't just like mash through the lobby before Shiggy's had a chance to set everything up. Mega's caught this surprising visual mistake, which is that one of Noodle's skins just had like transparency in the middle of their hand. And it's really hard to see on character select because it just like looks like there might be a pattern of, oh, there's just, no glitter in that part. It's just black on black. Amy was able to open up the old Photoshop files and fix that real quick. And a bug with, I think, the new mod editor. The other change is I've started work on some Steam integrations. I've been learning a lot more about how to interact with Steam from an Electron app through my work on Scramble. So if you have tried the game on Steam, it is a pretty bare bones experience. It's exactly the same as the browser version or the free desktop version, except we have some skins unlocked. First thing is we'll enable the overlay, because I'm pretty sure that doesn't work right now. And then the goal, long term, is the goal to have for release is achievements. Workshop is probably out of scope. Probably. Don't get your hopes up. But some of these quality of life things that you would expect from a Steam game. I'm continuing to learn more about what's possible with these libraries I found. So stay tuned for that. Scramble Heart update. What have we done since the last stream? Tyrant is now playable. He debuted last month during the playtest. He will be playable again at the next playtest, which is this weekend, May 15th. We're reworking some of the Fugue specials. The other thing I'm really trying to finish in time for this weekend is some improvement to the controller support, having a sort of like press to play functionality, so it's no longer as temperamental about like if you plugged in something else beforehand or if your headset is for some reason being read as a controller. This should fix a lot of those issues. Upcoming offline events that we can confirm attendance at are Combo Breaker, coming up very soon, which I'll speak about more in a moment, and Evo, which we are now officially confirmed for. Evo will also be happening at the same time that we do our monthly online playtest. And also maybe at the same time, or maybe instead, we're actually going to do it through Steam. So we're going to try doing like a demo on Steam that you just, install for free and it works for a couple of days. Mostly as a means of like discoverability, great like marketing opportunity. For this one, the very first one, we might just do exclusively Steam just to, really test that out. In the future, it could be back to web or it could be a hybrid of web and Steam. Obviously, there's advantages to web. Not everyone has a machine with Steam on it. But this is probably going to be a good testing ground for that because we want to try and farm wish lists. For Combo Breaker, if you are attending and if the signups haven't already closed, I'm not sure, we do have a bracket in the All In Together sub tournament. We're going to have our top 4 on stream, and we actually have a famous commentator that I'm excited to have recorded talking about my game. We will also be debuting at Combo Breaker some new merch, including a really cool thing that I can't show you because I don't have it physically. I'm not going to get it until I get to Chicago because I'm meeting the vendor there. Updated version of the bags with the new yellow trim rather than just like white on pink. And this is not a merch item per se. This is going to be the trophy for whoever wins the bracket. And we're also going to have 4 more of these just at the booth for people to use while they play the game. Maybe I could be compelled to sell some of them when the weekend is over. Talk to me IRL. But this is my first time really doing one of these. We've done a few of them in the past. Soup handled it. This is my first time getting my hands dirty, and I found it quite approachable. So we're probably going to continue exploring ways to customize these sorts of things because they're really cool. I think they're neat. And actually, I think I can demo this real quick. If you look in the little window there, ta-da! Scramble Heart City. Stuff like that I think is neat. But yeah, so if you're at Combo Breaker, lots of exciting new ways to give us money and or prizes to win. And I think that concludes the slides. So I figure we'll do a short little Q&A. Any questions about Tough Love Arena or Scramble Heart City? Kerbo asks, how's life been treating you? Star eyes emoji. Pretty good. I had food poisoning over the weekend. That wasn't fun. At the same time that we had this local event. I don't know if you knew about this, Olivia. It was like an official New York City government thing. I think it was like associated with the schools. It was like a general youth gaming one-day convention and was like much more focused around like having like a Valorant tournament. And this is aimed at like teens, I want to say. The room I was in, they were doing a Minecraft tournament, which I thought was actually kind of sick, where they like gave a bunch of different kids like a challenge of like build this thing. We give you 30 minutes and then we'll judge. So it was more of like a family-friendly gaming related thing. And then there were a couple of vendors there and a bunch of indie devs that were local. And I had a bad time because my body was failing me. But I'm on the mend. I feel almost back to normal. Development work has been going okay. Lots to do, but I'm very happy that people like Tyrant, so no big panics there. I think we're basically all set for Combo Breaker. It feels like we've been prepping for it forever, because it's, you know, there's like the new merch, but this is the most space we've ever had. We're planning to have 4 setups. So I've needed to buy more gear. We needed to buy new posters just to cover more space. Also, it was an opportunity to update the art because all the old posters are from like a year and a half ago. Rosie is the wrong color. Alistair's wearing his old outfit. That was back when like Alistair was the other main character, which he's not even in our Steam capsule art anymore. He's been demoted. So it was good stuff to do, and now we have all of that new equipment and banners and booth stuff and merch that should last us the rest of the year for Evo and hopefully later things. I guess I'm fine saying this orally. Like I think I've mentioned this before. We're shooting for CEO, and we're considering Holiday Matsuri, but we're not confirmed for those yet, so I don't want to put it in writing. So ideally, this is stuff that we could use at 3 or 4 conventions, and maybe even next year. We might apply for PAX West. So that's been a little stressful because there's a lot of we're getting like T-shirts for the team. We've got this really cool merch thing that again I can't show you because I'm not going to have it in my hands until next Wednesday. I guess TLA fans, if you're at Combo Breaker, if I have room in my suitcase, I'll bring some leftover TLA merch, or I'll bring some of the old, or even Scramble fans, I'll bring some of the old like how to play cards. If people want those as like a memento because they're just kind of collecting dust. So that's all squared now. That's all been ordered. If not received, the trophies and other things are all set up in that little pile there. So now I just have a week to do development work. That should be good. And I've been trying to, I've only done it twice, but I've been trying to make more time to play video games in my free time. And like I want to be clear, this isn't because I'm, some efficiency god who works on Scramble Heart 20 hours a day. I just spend a lot of time just kind of lying around. So trying to like redirect that energy into playing other fighting games and connecting more with the scene. And so if you look at the off-topic channel in the Scramble Heart Discord, you'll see my thoughts about Invincible Versus. I've been having fun, but I do have some opinions. But thank you so much for asking, Kerbo. Livy says, I didn't see the event till it was already happening. Well, I should have checked. It gets sold out a week early. And honestly, we only stayed for like half the time because I wasn't feeling well. And they ran out of space where they had most of the indies. So we got put in the basement next to the Minecraft tournament. And although I think that's a really cool idea, it meant that there was just like really loud music blasting all the time. We couldn't talk to anyone. Wasn't ideal. Wasn't ideal. Neat event, but you didn't miss anything. Hopefully the food poisoning wasn't from that pizza near Wonderville. I am hoping it was that pizza, because that means it's not the other things that I usually eat. The pizza would make sense. The pizza would give me a clear thing to avoid going forward, and I'll be safe. So I'm betting on the pizza. Kerbo says, I have a real question. Why did game change normals so many times? The old normals looked so sick. That's a good question. Oh yeah. Back when this sprite was used for like a flying dragon kick, more like a jam type thing. Old jump C. And then the main one I remember is the old 5B. Which I don't think this one was ever seen publicly. Yeah, okay. Okay, I think I found everything I wanted to find. And then Giant Impact, I also see your question about events. I'm happy to talk about that stuff. So, Aiden went through a lot of changes, as did most characters before Fugue. This I was actually quite attached to. This was originally going to be his 5B. Similar to the current one, it was going to be uniquely good at like preserving momentum. We were really pushing that idea. The problem I had with it is in order to make it feel like a satisfying little hop, you needed to actually like get off the ground, which meant, but the problem is it's 5B and you want to be able to use it in a Magic series. So if you cancel it into 5C, that means either he's canceling into a standing normal while he's floating above the ground, or he teleports to the ground and then does 5C and it looks a little visually jarring, or you delay the cancel until he lands, but then it doesn't feel responsive. That's basically what killed this. We tried all three of those versions to make it work, and I was like, there was a version of this where, because it was a short hit box that was traveling through the air, like if you hit it meaty, then you could link off of it, that kind of stuff. But the ease of like canceling out of it from just like a animation and game feel flow perspective just was more trouble than it was worth. And we were able to at least like reuse some of the idea of like the flying knee in his new 6D. Version 2, when we were having all those issues, was to do this. This was going to be 5B. I think I actually kind of liked this one, but Savvy didn't. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think it just like didn't feel high enough impact for him. So instead we went for the more like big boot. 5C used to be this. We were looking for ways to use his character and that he had these kind of like Inspector Gadget telescoping arms. Where could we like show that off in some of his moves like he does with his launcher, where his leg like goes up on like a jack. This had two problems. One, it was just so obscenely good as an instant overhead. Which you can, obviously, right? That's not what I wanted it to be. Or maybe I wanted it to be that a little bit, but it was too good. And the only way to fix that was to make it feel like have like really high startup or to nerf the hitbox. We tried both of these. If you played him at, I think, his first appearance at Combo Breaker, he probably still had this. Combo Breaker last year. It wasn't ideal. The other big problem was that the way juggles work in this game is that if I pop you up and I start doing Magic series, by the time I get, like, my height relative to yours while doing the attacks is usually maybe like a little bit lower than you on the L, same height on the A, on the first hit, a little bit lower on the A, same height on the B, a little bit lower on the C. So also, this just whiffed. Like, it didn't work well as like a Magic series button, unless we made the hitbox like really generous right here in front of him. And even then, it still like wasn't great. Alistair's aims down, but he also has a weird jump B that like drives them down. Rosie's jump C hits high. Boog's jump C hits everywhere. Harmony's jump C hits everywhere. You don't have these problems with those characters. And this one like really highlighted, oh, that's a problem. Cool jump in, but it felt non-functional in juggles. That ended up getting replaced with this, because we had the sprite. This was his old air special, which was meant to be sort of like an air tackle. That just felt, I guess, just not good. I don't know how else to describe it. It felt strictly like a combo tool. Like you just did it to end combos, but it sent them flying. So you actually kind of didn't want to do it to end combos. You would do this into the microphone missiles. So this would send them flying full screen, but put them in a hard knockdown state, and then the missiles would like OTG them. But outside of that, you basically never wanted to do the move. It didn't really have much use in neutral, and we wanted to replace it with something that felt a little bit cooler and a little bit more generally applicable. And we also realized he didn't have like a great cross-up button for his normals, so this was really easy to repurpose there. This was his old DP. You'll notice we sort of reused this, cut it up. So what used to be the up kick is now the follow-up on 6D, and the flip kick is what is now just his jump special. This was always intended as part of the DP, back when we were still planning on this being the jump special. In fact, I think this maybe canceled into the bicycle kick. And that would like cost a tape, was maybe the original design. But I think we just felt like he already had so many tools. Maybe he didn't need a meterless DP. And I also felt like I wanted him to have another option in neutral, because technically 5D is a neutral button because you teleport. But for getting in right now, it's like you run, or you instant air dash, or you YOLO rush punch, or maybe you teleport. But like 2D, axe kick is useless outside of point blank range. And this was also a problem with the meterless reversals in general. Like, they were only ever useful as reversals. They never even really worked well as combo tools. They felt really limited, and it's the classic Rice problem, where Rice has SWAT. And SWAT's kind of cool. It does cool combos, and maybe it's a good anti-air, depending on the version of the game. But it really just feels like Rice has one less special move than everyone else. Also, the problem with teleport. Rice, I learned a lot from Rice. And I think he was a victim of this. And this is also kind of what I'm feeling about Fugue. Even though Fugue already has twice as many moves as everyone else, I'm feeling like having some of her specials like dedicated, having a special dedicated to detonate and feel like so conditional means it just feels like she has less tools from standstill. So that made sense to chop up. This was just kind of boring. The missile super didn't make sense with his game plan. Was kind of tedious to play out. Only made sense with this tool, and we removed this tool. So that was an easy replacement, and I love the new flying hand buster thing. And I think that's all this stuff. So that's all of his buttons and why they changed. Question answered. Yeah, it's a microphone rockets. He would spawn like 10 of them around him and they'd fly. Yep. It looked like that. So, zoop, and then they'd homeseek in. And had a funny interaction like that where if there were more, if the character died before all of them went through, the remainder would just stay there forever tracking on where the dead character was, and incoming would just land into and get immediately meatied by like 8 missiles. Them freaking out there is just, they keep trying to, they're going back and forth trying to home in on that spot. That was cute, I guess. But that was the super. Just didn't feel cohesive with what he wanted to be doing. Okay, next question. Hellzone Grenade. It wasn't a good Hellzone Grenade because I had way too much recovery. And I didn't want it to be a good Hellzone Grenade. So that's why it felt like it was sort of caught between two worlds. It's kind of a bad version of two things. It only worked that way if you like did a quick DHC. Like DHC whiff something. But then you could kind of Hellzone it. Okay, next question. What's the typical setup for having a booth at CB, cost breakdowns, equipment management, etc.? So your most basic booth, or I'd say most standard booth, would be something like, let me pull up a picture of last year's Evo. So this is what we would call a 10 by 10. It's pretty standard at event spaces, at conventions where you rent space. If you're a vendor, if you're an artist and you're in like an artist alley, it's a totally different assumption of like having these tables that are really cramped in. But for normal like vendor spaces, you buy booths in increments of 10 by 10s of 100 square feet. And so if you want a bigger space, you'd buy 2 of them next to each other and get a 20 by 10. And it's usually just, 2x the price. Conventions I've worked, the price for this space for a 10 by 10, I've seen range anywhere from $500 to $5,000. And these are as an indie game developer. This isn't even like, if you're probably going to a corporate one, it could be even more. Because it can expect to charge really corporate people a lot. But that's a big range, right? I don't know if I've ever had actually, maybe free? I've been to a few conventions that let indie devs come for free, but I think most of them were like an artist alley table, or just like, a table in a ballroom kind of thing. 10 by 10, maybe ECT was free. I don't remember. No, because I think I paid for 2. Anyways, you get this much space. In my opinion, for a fighting game, that means you can either comfortably fit one big TV, or you can fit 2 monitors. You can like just barely fit 2 monitors. When you have 4 people standing here, there's basically like a 1 foot gap aisleway for you to get in and out. So it's pretty tight. I have seen like the Combo Devils booths, they would actually I call this little area like the backstage, because that's where we can sit and rest and where we store all of our stuff that's not being used. I think Combo Devils, they would like just push the table all the way in. That would make room for another table, and then you could fit a lot of people in your 10 by 10, but there's nowhere for the developers to sit. You're just sort of standing around on concrete all weekend. I don't do that. I like having my little backstage, my little place to retreat to. So comfortably you can fit 2 setups. Usually for these things you want to power them off of like a laptop or a mini PC. I used to do laptops for Temple of Arena. I used to buy a bunch of them. Actually, I can pull them out if people really want me to. Because I found these cheap HP laptops that were just strong enough to run the game. And they were big. They were like cheap for how big they were. They had a nice big screen. They felt very big. And my thought was like, these are perfect because, it's the computer and the screen all in one. But laptop screens aren't great, especially when they're that cheap. So nowadays, I much prefer bringing a mini PC, which is much easier to travel with. It's smaller, it's less fragile. You can put it in checked luggage. You don't have to try and run 4 laptops through through the TSA check. And then like renting monitors from the venue, or like buying them locally or sourcing them locally rather than trying to fly. Because like it's cheaper to just like buy a monitor and use it for 2 days and throw it away than like to check it into luggage. That's the sad truth. Like some of this stuff, the logistics of this, for example, this bag, it has just a bunch of metal poles. The poles interlock to create like a square frame that then you can hang art off of. Okay, so this is still during setup. But like this little metal frame, right? That we could droopily hang the pattern from because we weren't done setting up. But that's what this is. This is, I want to say, $40 on Amazon. This is just too big to fit in a suitcase. So if I want to take this to an event, which I'm flying to because I'm flying to all my events, basically, and I want to check this as luggage, checking it as luggage costs $50, right? So it's cheaper for me to order an extra one of these directly to the hotel where I'm staying, just fly to Chicago, unpack it at the hotel, use it for that trip, and then abandon it, than to actually bring it back and forth and try and reuse it. Because transporting it is more expensive than the thing itself. Weird economics. So I've been learning these lessons over the years. And so my current preference, I think monitors and TVs are one of those things. For how big they are and how delicate they are and how cheap they are now, prohibitively difficult, not worth the effort to try and transport via air. So I rent these from the venue. It's from the same vendor that like is supplying all the monitors for the little tournament setups, and they're usually pretty affordable. Generally, if you're renting stuff from a venue, like if you want extra chairs or extra tables, they're an insane amount. If we wanted an extra chair at Evo last year, it cost $200 to rent a chair for 3 days. The monitors were not that. I think the monitors were $50 each. But if you're getting something from the venue, from the expo hall, they'll really skin you, which is why I have started investing in stuff like this. This is a stool. It compresses very small, and I'll bring that in luggage as like an emergency chair. So you got me all excited talking about my convention nerdery. So this little bag, right? Fits in a little gym bag. It's pretty lightweight. Half of this thing is just padding, which is technically optional. I think it was actually the guys who make the Tesseract leverless controller that originally introduced me to this. His name is Micah, but yeah, this can support like 300 pounds. So I do sometimes bring stuff like this, or I've got like this camping table I really like, which collapses up pretty small, but is a nice like side table. Anyways, I got way off topic. The equipment management, it's like, yeah, okay. Some of the stuff you rent on site, usually they include the tables and the chairs. You can like rent monitors or TVs. So I'm bringing my own controllers, I'm bringing the computers, I'm bringing the tablecloth. They'll usually have some basic like black tablecloth, but I like to bring a color to stand out. Usually bringing my own art, except for some of the bigger conventions. They will request to print it for you, so everything has a uniform look. I've only had that experience at EVO and at PAX Rising. I think are the only places I've seen that do that. Compared to, MagFest, everyone fend for themselves. It really comes down to the cost of the booth. And usually when you're in more of like a ballroom at a hotel, at one of these maybe smaller events, like CEO from last year. Oh, this is during Teardown. Because our banner's not there anymore. I think I was taking a photo of the fact that people were still playing during Teardown. So this is 2 tables smushed together, where I think we could comfortably fit 3. We bring our own sign. Again, this is like floating in the middle of a ballroom. These have cost me anywhere from free to probably the most expensive one of these. It's probably $600. I think $600 per table. Once you go to the next step up to cement floor, giant convention center type stuff, all the prices raise for the organizers. And like even just having the union crew come out and set up the divisions for the 10 by 10 pipe and drape costs them money. So it's been very rare that I've gotten one of these for free. PAX is the most expensive convention that I would realistically go to. And at PAX, these are currently, I think, $2,500. Which, granted, PAX is a huge convention, and it's 4 days. So it's not terrible bang for your buck, but it's a lot of buck. For most of these, I feel like I can take everything I need in just 2 large suitcases. But as I've been bringing more like arcade sticks to stuff, it's been more difficult. But yeah, I've worked a bunch of these alone. The next 2, I'm going to have a lot of people helping me, which I'm very excited for. Happy to field any more specific questions. Turbo asks about Jump A and Jump B being swapped. Circling back to... yeah, Olivia, I would also be invested in portable stools the second someone charging $200 fair. What I actually did, so I don't think I have a photo of it at EVO. There was a Walgreens about a 6-minute walk from the venue. And I went there. I can't believe I didn't take a photo of this. I mean, I can believe it's so stupid. But I bought basically this, like, stool that was designed for old people in the bathroom. Like, it was a no-slip stool. It was not comfortable at all. And I think it cost, like, $45. But I needed something to sit on. And so, hidden behind this table is this tiny little fucking old person bathroom stool. The telescoping one is more comfortable than that. Hence why I've been investing in it. Oh, the other thing I did want to show, this has been a big quality of life improvement for me. Yeah, so if this is the photo from the front, right? This is the photo in the back. So you'll see each monitor has a second monitor. Now, if you bring a laptop, this is a good use of the laptop screen. Just have your laptop facing you and have the players have like a nice monitor that doesn't have terrible viewing angles and stuff. But having some kind of monitor, since we have mini PCs, I packed these little portable monitors that are super flat and pretty cheap. I have a whole collection of them now of different sizes so that we can see what people are doing. We can watch the gameplay. We can see if an issue comes up, and we can also, you know, amuse ourselves while still like facing the crowd and being able to see like, oh, new people have come up, come here, present the game, right? But then also be able to sit down when we need to sit down, or, you know, sit down and have a bite to eat or access some of the equipment, especially because we provide gear. We're spending half of our time just like wrapping up and unwrapping cables and grabbing stuff from, like, there's a little box of another stick right there. Managing stuff at the booth. But these have been a huge game changer. So yeah, every station has its own keyboard and monitor. Again, for free with a laptop. So that we can either fix stuff or do whatever stuff without having to switch over to the other side. Also speakers. Just a little USB speaker. Bring your own speakers. Even if you have a laptop, bring your own speakers. It's not, the laptop speakers aren't strong enough and they're going to be aiming the wrong way. These are cheap now. You can get them for like, I think as low as $30 for a decent one. They're all going to be Bluetooth, but I'd wire them anyways, just to be safe. And it's just plugged in USB to be charging the whole time. Hence why the light is like red. But yeah, that is my new permanent setup. Mini PC, 2 monitors, keyboard, speaker, dongle, although the new mini PCs I've been using have 2 USB ports on the front, so I've just been exposing those. This was for my Mac where I didn't have enough USB-A ports, so this is actually like a C to A expander, because I was using the A ports for like the keyboard. Enough about that. The Gain 5A, 5B fiasco. So, version 0 of the character, or maybe even Combo Breaker? We could check that video again to see. Let's watch Gain do a combo. Okay, no, this is before anyone got to play him. This was always designed to be Jump A. This was going to be Jump A, and this was going to be Jump B. That was the original intent. And then Jump C was the Stretch Armstrong. In, again, V0, this move, it didn't have the funky physics it has now, but it would drag them in. It would vacuum them a bit. Kind of like Alistair Jump B. And when that worked, let's see if I can make a very simple version of it real quick. So let's just take Jump B, remove all the velocity changes, and give it like, Yeah, so like do. Okay, even that feels like it has a bit of a move. Blow back. Contact both posture air GY 0. Something like that. So it used to work like this, roughly. This was super trivial to loop with. You would just do bam, 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 bam. You get the idea. Maybe 2As will do it. Right? That's how the move worked. V0 in the early drafting phase. And that was bad because A, boring combo, and B, it did a lot because that's a medium hitting 3 times. So the sort of panic adjustment to have him be, you know, not overpowered and playable for combo breaker, although I don't think it was super last minute, but the adjustment we made, still free anyone playing him, was, oh, one of the problems here is that he's hitting them with a medium 3 times. And I don't want to reduce the damage per hit because you might only do 1 hit, right? But that's a lot of damage. So let's make it like all the other multi-hits and just turn it into a light. That would fix the damage problem. And so we changed the propeller to the light attack because it was multi-hit. And then we were also at the time like, is that an interesting theme that like all of his lights are multi-hit? Because we were at the time also designing jump stand A. And then, well, we already have this headbutt animation. So let's just reuse that for jump B right now and just like add one more drawing of startup because it was designed to be a 5-frame move. And then it was like, okay, well now the headbutt feels like really boring. And this is like a movement character. How can we make that interesting? And so that's why this version of the character at Combo Breaker, so the first public one, to my knowledge. Oh, there's the old 5B. You can actually see it right there. So 2A, 5B. Well, 5C launcher. So light, and then yeah, this like little boost. He winds up with the headbutt. And it like zooms him forward. And we thought like, oh, this will be an interesting like little movement tech thing. In my opinion, that turned out to just like not have a lot of juice because it didn't cross up. Like, when were you ever really using it? If anything, it just made a lot of like conversions feel kind of weird. It made some stuff more consistent. It helped fix the jump C problem because this added a bunch of upward movement, which then made canceling into this more consistent. So the headbutt got kind of like shafted into this like compromised thing to make other stuff work. It was very inelegantly reused, and that's what we debuted at Combo Breaker. But they were both awkward fits. And the real problem that I had with that version of the character, or that version of Jump A, Jump B, was the helicopter is a really cool looking move. It's a cool silhouette. But the hitboxes are big because the limbs are way out there. And it felt really fast for how big it was. Honestly, the issue he still has with 5A, right? And I think that's part of what made it so... Two of the things that made it so powerful as like the instant anti-air, like box jumping, jump A, was the fact that I had this big, really forgiving hitbox, and that it also hit a variable number of times. So it was a lot harder to read than like, oh, Rosie at that height can really only do like 1 jump A. Whereas he could still maybe get like 2 helicopters. And it was really ambiguous. To the point of even sometimes as the game player, I wouldn't know how many helicopter hits I was going to get before I landed. So my solution to both of those was, let's just make his jump A like everyone else's jump A. That is a dangerous tool to make too cute. Because he's going to have a really good box jump. So it doesn't need to be better than this. And then, now that this is jump B, and it doesn't have to be like a really fast move that is, you know, like a problem solver. Now we can get a little bit more experimental with it, and we can do the stuff like, oh, it like has a little arc. It has some weird behavior to it. So we circled back to the original plan eventually. But it was partly, making peace with the damage, or I think maybe we scale it differently. I don't know. Or just IPS is more of a deterrent in a way that it wasn't back then. Because IPS worked very differently back at Combo Breaker. I think, right? I don't think we had the bar yet. Oh, we did have the bar. That might have been the debut of the bar. Oh my gosh. But he would have been made, all these changes would have been made before IPS was made. Because he, I think, was probably finished like a month or two before. Yeah, that explains that. Cool. I think that wraps up this stream. Yep. So, just to recap, feel free to report if there's any new bugs from some of the new changes. I'll hopefully be pushing some Steam stuff sooner than later. We're going to be pretty heads down for the next, 2 months on Combo Breaker and Evo. But hopefully Tough Love is coming out sooner than later. Fingers crossed, gang. And Scramble Heart playtest this weekend. A couple new gameplay things. A lot of new system quality of life changes, hopefully, to test out. And this is going to be a real dry run before Combo Breaker. I don't want to do any real big changes between this playtest and the Combo Breaker tournament. So hopefully any super imbalanced stuff we're catching and patching on Friday, Saturday. And then if you can't come to the event offline, please catch the stream. We'd love for your support. And we'll put VODs on the internet whenever we get a chance. That concludes this month's update. Thank you all, as always, for joining me. It was a nice little Q&A. It's easier for me to talk about stuff that I've learned a lot about or have a lot of experience or a lot of passion about. And clearly, I have a lot of passion about boothing because I've done it conservatively 15 times. I think that's conservative. I might be at 20 now. I'd have to do some math. I feel like I'm reliably doing at least 5 a year. And it depends on how you're defining, the big conventions versus, the more local stuff, like the one last Saturday, which was a booth, and we brought that's why I had these freaking bag of metal poles handy, because I was just using it a couple of days ago. Yeah, I've done this a lot. I'm not an expert. I can be wrong about things, but I have opinions. And it's, I guess, become a inseparable part of the process for me in a way that I enjoy. Anywho, thank you all for joining me. Have a good night.